Okay. Wow, she just really announced that really
She
loudly.
she likes to be a little bossy. She likes to yell.
I've actually never heard that ever.
All
Okay, so, but I
right,
don't see it. Okay, I know that
we are live now.
we are live. Okay, great. So I can share this to my page.
Oh my gosh.
Is that what I'm going to do?
Yes.
How do I
You
do
can go to my Facebook page and share this current live
Okay,
thing.
Weston, here we go. We're going to be on my page. What should I write? I'm going to say, I was going to say,
After many failures of technical
ah,
deficiencies, we've found great success.
okay, Weston Hurts Under the Hood talk show. Can I say
There you
that?
go. Yes, of
Oh
course.
my
Of
gosh, what is
course.
this? Okay. Um, all right.
I love that Leontine Price is in the background.
I love her so much.
Oh my gosh.
Can I say
Who
special guest Angel Blue?
you, you special doesn't even begin to
I'm
describe.
so crazy. Look, it's been a long day today. All right, here we go. Um,
Well, this
okay.
is going to just be fun.
It is. I'm so happy to do them finally. Good grief, 30 minutes after we started, but it's
But you know
working. So
what?
that's what
That's
matters.
like, I feel like fancy people, that's kind of the thing. It's like, oh, like when Pavarotti, he would, if he was singing something at the Met, it didn't start at 7 or 8. It started at like 8:30.
Did it?
Like kind of, oh, sure. Oh, tonight's tenor is having a little, okay, well, we're going to delay a curtain for a little while. I mean, I
Oh,
think one of his I don't know if you ever watched any of those videos that it's on YouTube of him, but people ask him like, what's the funniest thing that ever happened to you? And he said he was singing a show in some city and he got the time wrong, and he thought the show started at like 8 o'clock,
uh-huh.
but really the show started at 7:30.
Oh.
And so he got to the theater, went to the dressing room, got in his robe, started doing makeup, and he hears on the speaker in the dressing room, he hears his music for like his entrance. Can you even imagine?
I can't. I
That is
can't.
like, I'm turning red right now even thinking about that. Like
Uh-uh. I would be so stressed out on so many
hearing
levels.
hearing that sort of like, you know, whatever it might, let's say he's singing the Duke and like, the like whatever it is, like that entrance music of whatever it is, and being like, well, wait a minute, that sounds familiar. Hold on, wait, that's the live feed from the pit right now?
Yeah,
Like, I can't even imagine.
I don't know that I'd be able to perform. I don't think I'd be able to perform well. I think I would be terrified.
I know.
But you know
And
what? I mean, he was built for that though. I mean, he was so grand, you
I
know?
know. And yeah,
Great singer.
one of the stories that he tells in one of his public master classes when someone asks him, what's the most embarrassing moment? And he was saying that he was sitting there in his underwear and his robe, getting his makeup on, and he was like, I hear the music from, and I can't even. Well, hold on. Let's pause for one moment. And let me just say, here we are, 30 minutes later. I don't know what in the world was going on with my Zoom and what was going on with the Facebook, but thankful I am to my beautiful, amazing guest, Angel Blue, who
Thanks.
talked me through what I had already tried to do like 10 times. But it was like when she said, now do this, now do this, now do, and then all of a sudden it worked. So I'm just, you're magical. And to say that you are magical, anyone who knows you is like, well, duh, of course she's magical.
Thank you. That's very nice.
So I am so excited to have you here under the hood, where
Yay.
you know, we get to maybe talk a little bit about things that we don't get to usually discuss. And
Mhm.
I'm so glad, we had I will say I had the pleasure of working with you. What was it? 2 years ago, 3 years ago now?
3 years ago.
That's
3 years ago.
unbelievable. How
Yeah.
quickly time passes.
It's
We
gone.
we did that. Hmm.
Traviata.
Well, I know that it was called La Traviata because I remember what I was trying to find briefly was an adjective to describe the Traviata that we did.
Oh, it was
It was different.
interesting. Interesting.
It was interesting. It
Interesting.
was interesting. In the Act Two Je monte Violetta duet, I had a gun, or you had a gun that I
I had
took
a
from
gun.
you. we had a gun.
I had a gun and I was supposed to have cornrows too.
And
I was
I,
gonna, like, remember Violetta takes the gun and she like turns it on Germont and is like, isn't it like moro la mia
yes, yes,
memoria?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I had a daughter that I had to hit. I had to boom. And I was like, I have a daughter. I don't beat my daughter. Oh, well, it would be, if your daughter was, I will never forget this. It was when the director said, well, it's like when your kid is annoying you constantly, and you beat them. And I was like, no. I just, but we came up with a version that was still, as I like to use your word, interesting.
It was a interesting production, and that was my first real Traviata, and so
like first fully staged, like,
yeah, I mean, I did it before. I had done it before, but it wasn't. That was like the first real time I actually sang Violetta. So
wow,
yeah, it was interesting.
what an interesting introduction to that role, and very quickly thereafter, what, La Scala?
Yeah, that was last year. I sang it at La Scala.
Did you sing it
last
anywhere
year.
between Seattle and Scala?
I did. I sang it in Canada at Manitoba Opera.
Manitoba. Okay.
Yeah, I sang it in Canada at Manitoba Opera, and then I sang Traviata at the Royal Opera House in Covent Garden.
Well,
But that was only a couple of months before La Scala. So I feel like last year was wild. Last year was sort of like 2 Traviatas, and then back to Bohème, and then Tosca. So it was like, there's a big difference between Verdi and Puccini, and I was trying to figure out what exactly that meant.
one of them is thicker than the other, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe. But yeah, that's amazing. Well, I am, like I said, I'm honored. I didn't, I look back, I wish that they would have mixed up the performances a bit so that we would have an opportunity to perform together. We were in two different casts, but I was so thankful that I had the opportunity to rehearse with you, and have the opportunity to get to know you and work with you. And I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like, you feel the energy in the room, and you start to work with somebody, and you're just like, this person's amazing. Like, who, like,
Thank you.
I can't believe we didn't know each other sooner. So tell the folks, tell me, maybe, I don't even know, but like, how did you even get into singing? Like, you grew up in where did you grow up? What was your history? What's your background?
Yeah, I grew up in Apple Valley, California, which people in California don't even know where that is because it's not a big place. It's like the high desert is where I'm from. And so I grew up in the high desert, but my love for music came from my dad, really. I mean, my father was he was a trained opera singer, classical musician.
Oh, wow.
But he made his living by being a pastor and by singing gospel music. So, but I mean, he loved opera, and I actually have, I'm redoing my music room, which is why I'm trying to keep the camera this way, because over here there's stuff on the floor and all of that.
That's good. Yeah, I've strategically placed all my things. Yeah.
Yes, I'm trying to get all my stuff together because it was a disaster yesterday. I was like, I'll just move it all over so people can't see it. But he actually, I have some records that I found that my dad left me when he passed away. But he loved opera, and he really loved, his whole thing was just, he could sing and sing and sing and sing and just never get tired of it, and listen to people sing and sing and sing and never get tired of it. So I think that's where my love for opera comes from him.
So you grew up in a house that was like, was he constantly playing recordings of different operas?
Always.
So from a young age, you were already listening to that sound. Yeah.
Always. I mean, I saw Turned On concert when I was 4. So yeah, I mean,
that's great.
To this day, it's funny because when I hear da 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 da, that memory for me goes all the way back to when I was a kid.
Wow. And have you sung Liu?
I've only sung it one time, but I have sung it. I hope to do it again. That's like, I have my dream would be to sing that with Christine Goerke, like,
Her. Oh my God, we need to get her on here. She's
phenomenal.
I love Christine Goerke. That's amazing. Yeah, how great is she? Oh my God.
Yeah.
So okay, yeah. So from the age of 4, you were already familiar with Puccini and Turandot. And so growing up, I mean, at what point, I mean, what, let's say this, did he and your mom help kind of encourage you into musical, you know, aspirations, or did you say, "Oh no, I want to be in choir. I want to be involved in this stuff."
I think for me, my parents, my dad always said, if you have a child that you have to call for to dinner and you have to call them 5 or 6 times because they're studying, then maybe they're a scientist. Like my sister is a psychologist, and she was
Okay.
always studying, always reading books about people and their minds and how their minds operated. So my parents would like call her to dinner and she like wouldn't come because she was studying. They'd call me to dinner and I wouldn't come because I was practicing piano or because I was singing. So my dad always said, if you call them to dinner and they don't come because they're practicing the piano or they're singing, then you have a musician on your hands. And so for me, I was just I wouldn't shut up. I still won't shut up. But I was always singing, and I think my parents just really they never had to make me practice. Um, so they put me in a lot of things. They put me in where I'm from in Apple Valley. There was this group called the Sensations. My sister was in this group, and they did this thing called Performing Arts Workshop. It's called PA, and so I was in PA from gosh, I could say it now because it's so like long ago. You had to be 8 years old to be a part of the Young Americans workshop and the PA workshop. But my parents, well, they didn't lie. I lied. And I was like, oh, I'm 8. I was 7.5.
Uh-oh.
But I wanted to do it. So I lied and said I was 8. Um, and then when this lady who ran it, she came to my mom and she was like, Angel's 8 years old? I thought she was 7. And my mom was like, did you tell them you were 8? And I was like,
You're like,
I was like, I don't know, maybe. But yes, I did. So my parents just always made sure that I was around music in some way. But I think I helped with that because I was always interested, and invested in it at a young age.
what do you think? What do you, I mean, do you have any, you don't have any children.
I have a stepson.
You have a stepson. Okay. And how old is
Yeah. He's 9.
my daughter is 9. Okay.
Oh,
So
wonderful.
yeah. So, okay. So at the age of 9, I mean, like you mentioned, your children is interested in philosophy if they're studying science. Your kids
Yeah.
is interested in music. I call my daughter, come on, honey, come on. It's time for dinner. I'm watching my show. I'm playing my game. But what? Maybe she'll be a software engineer. Maybe she'll be,
Yeah.
well, following that logic, I can only hope, right? Um, but that's so amazing. So like, what was it that do you think that, so you mentioned piano lessons. You did your father like enroll you in piano lessons, or did you ask your parents if can I take piano? Like how did that happen?
It was my mom. My mom actually my mom played piano, and so I saw her sit down and play little, I don't know, minuets and stuff, and I was like, oh, I
Right.
want to play that too. That was really annoying to her too, because I would go, I don't know if I'm sure she does, she would sit at the piano and I would come and put my hand on top of hers, and so then she would look at my dad. She's like, she needs to take piano lessons. So I started taking lessons when I was 7. Unfortunately, I don't play like I used to because I don't practice. It's just the way it goes. You don't practice, you lose it.
Right.
So I've since lost a lot of my piano skills, but I'm thankful that my parents gave me piano lessons though, because I can play my music and I can learn music on my own, and that's
Isn't
very
that
helpful.
amazing? Isn't that amazing? I mean,
Yeah.
I wish, well, I mean, for a number of reasons. Firstly, I was born with one hand, so I don't think I was ever really destined to become a pianist. I remember being in college when, during a music major in college,
Mhm.
here in the States, you have to take piano lessons as part of your, degree requirements.
Yes.
I remember I initially got into piano lessons, and this professor, he looked at me and he was like, hmm.
Oh no.
Well, and then what you start to look at is like, well, the music that was written for, I have my left hand, and so you
Yeah.
look at music for piano that was written by, or written for rather, one-handed pianists, or specifically for the left hand. It's almost always written for concert pianists who have broken their right hand, or
Really?
injured their right hand, and so the level of difficulty is actually pretty significant. And so he was trying to start giving me, and I'm like, I don't know how to convey this to you. I have never taken piano. Like, I don't know how to play piano. And it was such a frustrating. I remember going and being in tears in my piano lessons as like a 19-year-old, being like, I don't know what I'm doing. Thankfully, I was able to switch studios, and there was this lovely, lovely man who was actually the repetiteur sort of for the Opera Theater Workshop. And he was this, like I said, he just an amazing guy. His name is David Utterback. And he was like, oh, well, okay. So yeah, let me see if I can find something that would be good for you. And he was like, he gave me like a simple cello piece that would be equipped, it's written in the bass clef, so you could just play with one hand and it happened. But anyway, I say all of that to be like, wow, that's amazing that like you grew up in a family where your mom was playing piano, your dad was listening to opera. And so
Yeah,
probably whether I mean, I guess you were, there was one way or the other. You either were gonna, be involved in this and love it, or you were gonna like
for
absolutely
sure.
rebel and hate it.
Yeah.
But that's amazing. So then when it came time to like, I don't know, go into junior high, I assume that, did you go to public school or private school in junior
I
high?
went to public school. I've
Okay.
been in public school. Well, I mean, my high school was public, but you had to audition to get in. So it
Okay.
was kind of, I mean, I guess in a way it would be private, but it was a public school. It's just that
Like
one had to
was it
audition.
like a public performing arts school or?
Yeah, I went to the Los Angeles County High School for the performing arts, or for
Yeah.
the arts, not performing arts, for the arts, because they were, what do they call it? Visual artists
Right.
there. Yes.
Right. Sculptors, whatever. I don't know.
Yes.
So, so once you got into junior high, you were involved in choir, I guess?
I was in advanced glee. I was in choir and in like, goodness, I was in for a hot minute I was in the band, and then I was just sort of I had a lot of extracurricular activities. Like I mean I'm not now, but I was a gymnast at the time. So I was a
All the
much
things.
smaller. Yeah, weird, right?
What was your forte in the gymnastics routine?
I think I was best probably at the uneven bars.
Wow.
Probably.
That's amazing.
That's where I had the least amount of where I was the least scared,
I was
but
going to say where you had the least amount of injuries, where you had, what was going with that?
I tore almost all the skin off of my hand though when I was a gymnast from here to here, and I remember I couldn't do my piano lessons for like I don't know how about a week or so.
I would imagine
But
that would cause some issues. Yeah.
yeah, it was pretty rough. But I mean, I thankfully to my parents, I was really active. I was doing a lot of things, but always with music on my mind though.
Wow. Okay. And when did you start becoming a gymnast? When did you start doing
I
that?
started gymnastics when I was like 10, and then I quit finally when I was about 16, 17 years old.
Okay. So through junior high, you were doing gymnastics and music.
Hmm.
And did you
Yeah.
keep up piano at this time?
I was very active. Piano. I was doing piano. I was playing the bass guitar at church. And yeah, I was playing the bass guitar.
Larry Brownlee.
Oh, but he's a really good bass guitarist.
He can play.
He's a very good bassist.
So
Yeah.
Larry and I went to IU together, and
Oh, wow.
I told the story on his episode, but I was like, I went to audition at IU, and you go in there and they're like, oh well, we're doing an opera tonight. If you'd like to go see the show that we're doing, Kyle Kettleson was Don Magnifico, and Larry Brownlee was Don Ramiro in Cinderella,
Wow.
and I was just like, what is this school that has this level of performance?
Wow.
And
Yeah.
shortly after I arrived and started going to school there, Larry and I became quick friends, and when I learned the level of talent that he possesses. But okay, so I mean, that's the cool thing about doing this show is like you start to find out people who you're friends with, you're like, I never knew you were a gymnast. I never knew that you knew.
Well,
You're like, well, I don't put it on my resume anymore.
yeah, it's not like I'm going to sit here and do like a round off back handspring. I mean, I still do. Interestingly enough, this morning when I woke up really early, I do like some very, very basic yoga, but I do stand on my head. I can still do a headstand. I'm going to try to preserve that as long as I can. I can, and I pray that I can keep doing that for a long time.
But I definitely think like at the bottom of your bio, you should definitely say like, additional skills.
Does headstands in the morning.
Kill it on the uneven bars between the ages. That would be so good.
That was a long time ago, but thank you for letting me talk about it. I never talk about it.
Oh my God. I mean, that's what the whole point is. So let me ask you this. When you're doing uneven bars, if you think back and you remember that, where do you feel like as a gymnast, like, do you feel that it's all about core work, or do you feel that there's more upper body strength involved in that? And how, here's the hard question, how do you feel like that type of internal, muscular activity
Mm.
translates to what we as singers use all the time? I mean, do you feel like there's any kind of correlation, or is that just like a ridiculous question?
No, it's not a ridiculous question. I mean, for me, the way I remember gymnastics, which I'm not, I would never call myself a gymnast. Um, I'm sorry, I hear my husband and my stepson yelling, and I just hope the dogs didn't get out. That's all I'm thinking right now. I heard, oh no! And I'm just like, just please, just, just,
That that can mean so many things. Oh no.
yeah. I'm
Are we
sorry,
okay?
it distracted me for just a minute, but
You're fine. You're fine.
yeah, no, but no one's run up here yet. So I
I don't see
imagine
any
them.
leaking water. I don't see any fire. I don't, it could be anything.
Yes. So hopefully everything's okay. But from what I remember of gymnastics was that the inner work, I mean, all of that kind of came without really working on it, if that makes sense. Like I didn't have to think about how I breathed or how I took a breath or really anything, because it was so much more mental for me. And I was never like a great gymnast. I mean, I had friends who got to level 10 competitive gymnastics, and
Right.
I believe that's what they were level 10 competitive gymnasts, and they were really great gymnasts. Um, but I was always kind of like, whenever we did competitions and stuff, I was happy just to get like an honorable mention or like the third place. I was really happy with that. I was part of a team up in the high desert, where we would go to like the local, we had a baseball team, a minor league baseball team, and we'd go out there and they'd set up a gymnastics like floor, and
Right.
we'd run out and tumble, and before the game and stuff like that.
Right.
But the one thing I do remember about gymnastics, actually, I'm really happy to talk about this right now because it's something that's very strong on my heart, is about how we think, and what's on our minds. A lot of, for me, when I was a gymnast, so much of what was important was visualization. So when I would tumble, when I would do a floor routine, wow, I haven't talked about gymnastics in years, but when I would do a floor routine, I had a coach who said, you have to visualize yourself. You have to see yourself doing the routine,
Right.
and that definitely helped me. So I think probably the thing that is the most, um, that connects opera, I would say, to gymnastics would be that, and that is to visualize oneself actually doing the role, singing the role. I recently made my Metropolitan Opera debut just 3 years ago, and what's so interesting about that is I had dreams of coming out in a white dress in front of this big gold curtain, and and just something I would always think about. And so I could actually see myself coming out on stage, and I was always wearing this white dress. I never knew what that meant or whatever, but I think visualization is so important when it comes to not just the hard work that we do as singers or as gymnasts do, but I think it's very important just in life and what we're thinking. What is it that you're feeding yourself? Because what you feed yourself here ultimately is what you're feeding yourself in here.
Right.
If that makes sense.
What role did you debut in?
Mimi, and she
Mimi.
comes out in Act 4 in a white dress, and that's what she bows in, and that's what I could see myself in, which is weird.
Unbelievable. That's incredible. So you had these dreams and visualizations of that idea with that gold met curtain behind you
Yes.
before you even had the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, I do think that visualization and knowing the success and seeing yourself being successful in whatever it is that you're, trying to achieve is so incredibly important, so that it
It
doesn't
is.
seem like such a uphill
Yeah.
battle where you're having to push this rock, but instead you can see yourself already sort of at the top. And I think that that's really important for young singers to understand. But
Yeah.
so back up a little bit. You said that you went to a Los Angeles School of Performing, or
Yeah, LA County School of the Arts, or they call it Arts High.
yeah, okay. And so there, would you say that you had already kind of, by the time you got to high school, realized that like singing was your jam more than like piano was, or were you still sort of like, well, I don't know, I'm kind of figuring out what I'm doing?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to. Hey, Renita said, "Hey, y'all." I don't know if she's still watching, but hey,
Oh yeah.
Renita.
Oh, Renita. I love Renita so
I
much.
love Renita Miller. I
We'll walk
love
together a couple.
Renita is gonna hate me if she's still there when I say this. I had a birthday party when I turned 26, and I made Renita come to my house with Douglas Sumi. We were all in the Young Artist Program at LA Opera. I made her come to my house and sing for me and my family on my birthday.
Did you make her sing Happy Birthday or something else?
No, she sang like two arias. She sang both of Dalila's arias, and then I
Okay.
think she sang Carmen. I mean, it was like I was like, I didn't have any money at the time. I mean, now I would be like,
You were
I'll
like,
pay you
Renita, you're my
something.
friend, so I need you to come be
Yes,
my
but she was so
happy
beautiful.
birthday.
She came and sang, and we all sat there and watched her sing. We were just like, but but it's a great memory.
I love that woman so much. She's
I
so
do too. Sorry, I saw her. This popped up and I saw her name and I just thought, oh, I have to
yeah,
say,
no, and one of my students, Brennan, says Woot public school. So
yay.
yeah, I mean, I went through public school as well, all the way through. I mean, well, in university, I attended a couple of private, well, let's say a private school and then a public school and a public school and then a conservatory. But
Oh, okay.
certainly through junior high and high school, public
Yes.
schools was the way to go.
Sorry, I took you off of the topic. What were you saying before that?
I was saying that when you got to your Los Angeles Arts High,
Yes.
were you focused in to like, okay, I'm going to learn how to be the best singer I can be,
Mm.
or were you like, this is cool, I'm going to sing, I'm going to play piano, I'm going to play bass, I'm going to like, were you focused or was it more sort of general at that point?
I think at that point it was just Loxa was like everything to me because I'm from a small town. So where I'm from, I don't know if it's the same now, but you know, I want to. I'm sort of. Oh gosh, darn it! I don't know what I'm saying.
Oh, wait,
Um,
you say small town, so you say high desert. Where outside of what?
have you heard of Palm Springs?
Oh, of course, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so Palm Springs is the low desert. I'm from the high desert. I'm from. That doesn't mean anything. It's like Victorville, Apple Valley. Do you know where Barstow is? Have you heard of Barstow? Have
I
you ever driven from Los Angeles to Las Vegas?
No, I haven't. It's funny. I was born in San Bernardino, and
Okay, no, that's perfect. You're born. How
no,
come I didn't know that you're from San Bernardino?
because I lived there from the time I was 0 to the time I was 4.
I was born in Montclair.
And you know what? Is that near San Bernardino?
It's like San Bernardino County. So I'm
Okay,
Apple
good.
Valley's in San Bernardino County.
The thing about me is like I have like a memory of being in San Bernardino, two memories of being in San Bernardino, but I grew up in Texas. Like
Oh, that's right. Okay.
I've always been in Texas. So yeah, my dad was in the Air Force, and so that was why we were out in San Bernardino.
Okay.
We're really in Redlands is sort of where we lived.
That's
And
where okay. Okay,
so
so go an hour north on the 15
okay,
and that's
the 15.
the 15, yeah, the 15, the 10, the 405, the
I
110,
love it.
the 101. I
I
am
love
very
it.
much from Southern California. I'm a California girl in a New Jersey state of mind. That's what I guess that's what that
Right,
exists.
right.
So basically, where I'm from is 1 hour from Redlands. My husband and I just moved to New Jersey from Redlands.
Oh wow! And where
Yeah.
are you in New Jersey?
Where are we in so in New Jersey, we're in Bergen County. So we're in like North New Jersey, literally.
I lived in Secaucus.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So we're not too far from Secaucus.
I
That's
was
great.
in North. That's North Bergen, but like
Yeah. We're North. We're like,
you get really into the armpit.
yeah, we're far up here. We're like basically the Tappan, well, like 10
Tappan
minutes
Zee.
from the Tap Bridge.
Okay,
Tappan Zee.
okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay,
So to answer your question, I was not, I was focused on opera, but I was able to do other stuff in high school.
you were already focused on opera singing in high school.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I did my first full opera when I was 14. Yeah. And then I sang The Mother in a Mall and the Night Visitors when I was 16. It was a very special school.
Okay,
Very special.
okay. What opera were you in at 14?
I was in Alcina.
Who is doing Alcina in Redlands and
Los Angeles.
LA Opera?
No, Los Angeles, the LA County School for the Arts.
They decided that you would do Alcina. And what did you sing a role?
I sang Ruggiero Verdi Prati. I was a mezzo.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I was a mezzo.
I
So I was,
I just don't know anyone who has sung an opera role in at the age of 14.
oh, I'm sure. I mean, do you know people, anybody who went to like LaGuardia or someone who went to any of like, I don't know, any arts high school, they
Apparently
do.
you do. I don't.
Their arts high schools are a great thing. I think
Oh yeah.
for especially for people who are trying to find opportunities to perform like I was, that's, I mean, it's really, gosh, it's really something special,
No
I
kidding.
think.
So you had the opportunity to do Agrippina or Alcina, sorry, at
Alcina, yes.
Amal and the Night Visitors at six. By the way, brief side note: when I had the opportunity to sing my first international gig at the Spoleto Festival dei
Wow.
Mondi in Italy, uh, Menotti was still very well and alive, and
Wow.
I got to go after we opened the show. We went to his castle for dinner, and it was kind of amazing. And like I got to sit next to him and tell him one of the first things that I ever, well, the first thing that I ever did. And my mom was a choral director and a singer and a piano
Wow.
teacher, and is still very active as a piano teacher and a voice teacher. Um, but she was singing the mother in Amal and the Night Visitors, and I was one of the little children in the chorus, and so I got to tell him, I was like, thank you so much for your work. And, that was my first experience. And then when I was in college, I got to sing Bob and the Old Maid and the Thief. And
Oh, that's awesome.
it was amazing to like meet this man who had done so much. And,
Yeah.
but anyway, okay. So Alcina, Mother and Amal and the Night Visitors. Did you do more operas during your high school years?
I did. I was in Carmen as Micaela, but I also did scenes from Carmen as Carmen. Um, but it was just, I think it was the Gypsy song that we sang.
Right.
And I'm trying to think, we had an opera gala, or it was a music gala where we did opera scenes. I was Violetta in the act one of Traviata.
You
That
said
was, I
Santa
was,
Nebra in high school?
no, 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 we stopped right before that.
I was
Yeah,
like, girl, okay.
we stopped, but I learned it though when I was 18, and I got to sing it in a competition when I was 19. So that was really cool, really, really cool.
Okay. So, I mean, this is amazing. So, okay, so you finish high school and then you're looking towards college and I assume, think, okay, I want to major in music. I want to find a great voice. Where did you end up going to college?
So my road to college was weird because I only wanted, excuse me, I only wanted to go to Juilliard. That was the only school I wanted to go to. When I found out that Miss Price went to Juilliard, I was like, that's where I'm going. That's it. I don't care. And I didn't get in. I applied twice, and both times I wasn't accepted, which is actually, and I tell that story not to be like, oh, Juilliard didn't take me. That's not why I share that. I share that because I think it's very telling that, we all have our own path, and we all have to be, I mean, we may not see it when we're actually going through that kind of difficult time. I
Right.
was very, very,
Heartbroken, I'm sure.
upset, despondent when that happened,
Yeah, yeah.
But I have to say, going through college the way I did, I think was the best thing for me. Now that I look back, I see that. When I was 18, I went to Cal Baptist University for my freshman year of college.
Okay.
And then I liked it. I sang Dido and Dido Nenaeus, and then left because I just thought, this isn't really what I missed. Oddly enough, I, I missed my family. I was so ready to like leave and get out of the house and be like, oh, I'm going to be a college student by myself.
Right.
But I missed home. So and 9/11 happened that first year that I was in college. And that was sort of
Wow.
really just devastating. And as it is to everybody,
Right.
a wake up call. So I moved home and I went to Victor Valley Community College for a year. And while I was at community college, I was taking some dance classes and I was taking a ballet course. And my ballet teacher said, I invited her to my recital that my parents were doing for me. And she was like, you should go to the University of Redlands. We have an opera program. We have a school of music. And I was like, the University of Redlands, really? What is that about? And so I was like, I would go home, I tell my dad, and my dad's like, oh yeah, the University of Redlands, of course. Can't believe I didn't think of that. That's only, at the time, it was only about 45 minutes from where we live. Now it's a bit longer just because of freeways and everything. So I ended up going to Redlands University of Redlands, where I have my bachelor's of music degree from. And from Redlands, I went to UCLA, where I have my master's degree from. So it all kind of worked out for me. And I have to say, I'm really thankful that I stayed in California and didn't actually leave for my training, you know. Now
Right.
that I look back on that, I'm like, okay, that was the right thing to do, you know.
Right. Isn't that interesting? I mean,
Yeah.
you mentioned it so eloquently. It's like sometimes we feel like we want to do one thing and then, for whatever reason, we don't get accepted or we don't win first or we don't make the finals or we don't get into the program or we don't, whatever it is. And then like something else happens and you take a turn and then another door gets open and you're like,
Yeah.
had I done that other thing, I never would even experience this. And it's unbelievable to think about that. So in the roles that you've mentioned thus far, granted we're only through your graduate school, there's a mixture of mezzo and soprano stuff.
Yeah.
Was that sort of a confusing
Confusing.
confusing? I'm sure it was confusing a little bit to you, but was that also kind of a confusion to your? Did you have like one teacher or two or three teachers over that period of time who were like, well, maybe you're a soprano, maybe you're a mezzo, I don't know.
Yeah, I had my father was my first teacher, and my dad wanted me to study with a lady. He said he really wanted me to go further, and he said there were certain things that he felt like he didn't explain very well, which I to this day I'm like, no, he knew exactly what he was talking about. Because I find that I sing better. My best performances are when I have gone back to like being 12 years old with my dad standing next to me showing me how to breathe and that kind of a thing. So no shade, nothing to anybody who I've ever worked with, but
Sure.
I find that those, that rudimentary elementary level really has helped me now. The whole mezzo thing came about because I was singing, gosh, what was it? I was singing like Ombra Mai Fu or something at a competition, and I had a teacher, one of the adjudicators actually came to me and was like, "Oh, you're a mezzo. No, you're not a soprano. You're not a soprano at all. You should be singing." And she gave me like Dalila, and I was singing like Mon Coeur and some other mezzo arias. I started looking at Voi che sapete, and I was like, I don't think I'm a mezzo. My dad's like, I'm pretty sure you're a soprano. I don't know why they're telling you you're a mezzo.
Hmm.
And it was it was a weird time, but it was very confusing to have this thing and so many people saying that I was mezzo. But what was weird was when I got into this honor choir, and when I took the honor choir, the um, the director of the choir was like, "You're a mezzo. You're an alto." I was like, I'm not an alto. I like high notes. Because I was a gymnast, I would do a back bend and I would sing high notes. I would sing like a high E flat doing a back bend. I
Wow.
mean, I'm super young and super limber at this time. So finally, what ended up happening was my dad said, if you're really a mezzo, then you should be able to sing these exercises easily. So it was the Vicai and the 24 Italian art songs and arias. It was the lower key. And I had such a hard time getting through it. And my dad's like, you're not a mezzo. You're a
Hmm.
soprano, period. I don't want to hear anything else. You're a soprano.
Wow. That's
I
amazing.
don't know. It was an interesting time. But the thing is, when I was in college, I just wanted to sing so badly that I didn't care really what it was. So by the time I got to the University of Redlands, nobody was like, oh, you're a mezzo. Everybody was like, you're a soprano. So
Well, I mean, I think I look back on my time and because my face didn't turn purple when I sang an F sharp or a G, I had so many people telling me, "You're a tenor. I think you might be a tenor. You need to look at Winterstürme. You need to. I think you might be." And I was like, "Really? Like, what makes you think that?" And they were like, "Oh yeah, you should. Yeah, yeah, yeah." And I mean, this was well into like even when I was an apprentice in Santa Fe, and
Mhm.
you know, and I'm like, okay, so I'm obviously doing something that hits their ear as being tenorial, but I'm also doing something that I couldn't sustain the tessitura. I didn't have the top, and so it's interesting. I mean, what we end up finding is certainly that people love to give and share their opinions about,
Always,
right?
always, whether you've asked for it or not.
Yeah, exactly. And then, I think it's up to you and your team. And I think that it's so important for any young singers watching. It is so incredibly important to have a team that you trust. And maybe that's just a voice teacher, your significant other,
Yeah.
a coach, and maybe, one or two other people, but not getting too big. I mean, it's just a small group of people who can say, what did that person say?
Yeah.
Regardless of who it might be. It's like, no, 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 no. We need to focus this. This is what we're doing. And So one of the things that, and I mean, I honestly know very little about your stint in this realm, is that you were involved in beauty pageants, right?
Yeah.
I don't know why that's so funny to you, but
Oh, because I just think it's funny. I always forget. I always forget until somebody brings it up. I have a lot of girlfriends who are, we competed together. We did pageants together, and I see them on Instagram and stuff. And I often forget that we compete. That's how I know them,
right, right.
until they've posted something about it. I'm like, oh, that's right. We did that Miss California or whatever together years ago. But sorry, I didn't mean to. It's funny. I do forget sometimes.
No, hey, listen, I understand. I founded the lacrosse team at my high school.
Oh
And
my
sometimes
gosh.
people are like, God, remember when we played? I'm like, oh yeah, we totally did. Yeah. I played lacrosse all through high school and
That's
college. Well,
awesome.
2 years in college and yeah, but yeah, I mean, I get that. I get that if it's not something that's constantly on your mind, but I will say this. Here is my limited knowledge of beauty pageants.
Okay.
Usually, um, you walk around and show, you do the walk, you do the wave, there's usually a evening gown, bathing suit, whatever, and then there's always a talent thing, right? Oh my God, what is this?
It's funny because I'm rearranging this room. So I used to have my saxophone here and I have my bass here.
You play
But
saxophone?
I did. I only play now just to show I usually play to scare the dogs, if I'm honest. Whenever the dogs aren't listening, I'll take my saxophone out and I'll go boom, and they run out because if they're being bad. It's the only time I do that.
That's amazing.
But I'm rearranging everything. The room is a mess right now. But this is actually that's funny because this is from pageants. This is from 2006 Miss. It's all messed up, but this is from 2006. This is Miss California,
Oh my God.
and this is that's my evening gown. Okay, way over there. This is my talent. This is my on-stage question. And that was my final night, my top 10 gown, which I wish I hadn't worn because it wasn't really a proper gown. I was trying to make a statement, and the statement was like, maybe it was like a question mark and not a statement.
Okay, so let's focus on the talent portion of. So this was the Miss America competition?
No. This was sorry. This was the Miss California patch. So this is like what do you call that? This is the state level. So I never made it past the state level. I competed in Nevada and in California. I was top 10 in California for 2 years, top 5 in California for 2 years, top 3 in California for 2 years. But I never won the title, which is cool. It's fine. It wasn't supposed to happen. And then I went to Nevada because I was moving because my dad had passed away and my sister and my brother-in-law had moved to Las Vegas because he was working at a hospital out there. And I was like, well, I'll go there and I'll try to compete in Nevada. And the exact same thing happened. I was first runner-up again. So I was like, okay, this isn't for me. So, and I was aging out. So that's what happened with that.
Got it. And your talent was saxophone?
My talent was singing.
Okay, so let me ask you this. What did you sing when you sang on these things?
Sempre Libera.
On all of them? Like every time?
I never changed it. I never changed it. So here we are. If you take Sempre Libera, what is it? I can't
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, so if you take Sempre Libera and I don't need to play it. If you just do the first part of the aria, because the talent has to be under 2 minutes. And now I'm happy to share this with anybody who's competing because I'm not competing anymore, so I don't care. But, when I was competing, I tried to keep my mouth shut about it. It's really exciting. If you just sing the Sempre Libera and you take all of the cuts, including cutting the tenor section, whatever it is that he sings in the middle section.
Whatever that offstage nonsense is.
I don't remember what it is that he sings.
No, that's at the end.
Quell'amor che palpito. If you take that out and you just sing, if you sing it with the cut, does that make sense? If you sing it with the cut, then Sempre Libera is under 2 minutes. It's like, and I had this really great engineer at UCLA who did it for me, and it was 1 minute and 58 seconds, and that's what I sang.
Get it?
That was my
That's
piece.
amazing.
Yeah, it was really fun. It was really fun. I have to say, that's a time in my life that I'm really thankful for sure. It taught me a lot, but I loved the talent portion of everything. I mean, that was my, I think that was my forte in the
Oh,
pageant.
sure. Yeah,
That and the interview. I liked the interview a lot.
I imagine so. You're an eloquent speaker and an amazing performer, so I can't
Thank
imagine
you.
how else. So let me ask you this. Having sung that aria since then, and
Hmm.
then having sung the role at Teatro alla Scala and Seattle and Manitoba and wherever else, what type of technically that must have been such a transition as your voice changed, as you grew up as a woman, and as you went through these different stages of your development, and you know, what sorts of things changed or stayed the same with that particular aria?
My love of the aria has not changed.
That's
I
amazing.
still I still get so excited when I hear that. Bum 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 ba ba da da bum. I mean, that's just so exciting to hear. I don't know. I don't even know how to explain that. I think as my understanding of the opera has grown, as my knowledge of Italian has grown, and as of course me as a singer has grown. I I don't know. I think what I enjoy about the piece, the whole thing, is more about the character of Violetta. Does that answer the question? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's say this. How old were you when you first sang Sempre Libera?
I think the first time I sang it all the way through, I believe I was 19.
Okay. And then, you said you sang it last year at Scala. So obviously, from 19 to now, there are going to be different technical adjustments that you make and realize whether you give more here, save more here, adjust the vowel a little bit more here.
Hmm.
What
Yes.
sort, what sorts of things technically have you realized through that aria and maybe through singing in general? Um, Again, I think it's so unique that you have had opera in your life and classical operatic singing in your life for so long, so that now, when you go to sing a piece, what are some of the, I mean, I would be interested in hearing what are some of the things that you have to now remind yourself of with a piece like that you've lived with for so many years, but also what are some of the things that you remind yourself to stay true to because of your initial love of the piece or because of the love of the art form or whatever. How has that sort of adjusted over the years?
Well, if I talk about technically speaking with the aria, um, I had when you were saying that, there was one thing that came into my mind, and I'm only sitting here because I gave a master class before this. Um, Otherwise, I would be in my basement with all the lighting and stuff. But this section where it's like,
Yep, yep.
okay, all of that. Um, that section when I was 19 was really, really hard for me. And that one and that section, right?
Yep, yep.
So I remember one time I was singing it, and maybe opera people won't like this. Maybe some opera people will say, "Oh, well, you were singing it in a pageant, so that's why you couldn't sing it." Well, whatever. I mean, just because a girl is singing in a pageant doesn't mean that she's not talented. It doesn't mean that she, doesn't care about the art form, doesn't whatever. So actually, I was singing in Hubston, Illinois, and this is in 2005. I was representing the state of California as Miss California Sweetheart, which means that you were one of the first, like the first runner up, but at that time I was the second runner up. And I went and sang this aria. So my technique and stamina was, at that point, I was 20, let's say I think 20, how old was I? I was 22. And I couldn't get through that section. I couldn't sing de volar il mio pensiero. So what I ended up doing was I dropped out of that second one. So I didn't sing it. It was just the music. Da, 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 da. And then I came back in. Ah, 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 ah. And as we all know, it's not written that way.
Right.
So what I see now in singing, now I can sing the whole role. What I've noticed about La Traviata, or about just that aria, I suppose even just that part, is that as I've gotten older, as I've learned my voice more, as I've become more acquainted with what my singing is for me, what my body needs, what my breath is for me, what the language has become for me.
Right.
I've learned that stamina has been something that I've really built up over the last, what is that, over 15 years or something,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know. And I think all of that, of course, comes with experience. It comes with technique. It comes with a lot of practicing. And I have to tell you, Weston, when I first learned the aria, I do remember my dad saying to me, he said, if you want this to be good, you're going to really have to practice it. And I said, what do you mean, Dad? And I kind of got offended by him saying that. And he said, I mean, you're going to really have to practice it the way you practice your scales. Because I would, I was a pianist, so I'd practice scales
Mm.
all 24. I could play all 24 at the time, like 4 octaves of them.
Wow.
And he said, you're going to have to practice that way. And what I've noticed with the aria and with Traviata as a whole, and not just, of course, Traviata, but I've noticed that with everything that I've sung. Bohème, I sang my first Tosca last year. Everything that I sing, it has to, it is kind of true. Well, I shouldn't say kind of, it is true what Maria Callas says. And that is that when you're studying something, you want to study it the way you would study your marriage contract. You have to know everything. You want to know everything about it. You want to know everything about your spouse. You want to know where your spouse was born, what your spouse ate when they were young, what it is that makes them, how, you know what I mean? Every single thing. That's the one thing I think for me, technically, that, and I'll just try to stay with the technical side of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I found that I've really grown technically, where to the point to where I'm completely aware of what I'm doing when I'm singing. Whereas even just 10 years ago, I don't think I was as aware as I am today when I open my mouth to sing anything. I'm aware of what's happening.
Are there let's say one or two primary focuses when it comes to technique? Are you focused more on breathing? Are you focused more on vowels? Are you what is when you mention technical singing? What is it that you primarily sort of lean towards when when you're performing a piece like that that
Hmm.
requires such acrobatic type of, I mean, that role in itself. I mean, if anybody's unfamiliar with Violetta, everyone talks about how there's act one of Violetta, then there's the act two and three of Violetta, and those are two different, or maybe even three different voices depending on
Yeah.
who you talk to. um, I've had the great fortune of singing Germont a number of times and singing with a variety of different Violettas. And I the thing that I always find myself in conversation with my Violettas is the ones who don't have the E flat and say, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I don't know what I should do. I don't know what I should do. They freak out about the E flat at the end of Sempre Libera. And I'm like,
It's
who
not written.
cares? I'm like, who cares? I'm like, do you have an E flat? No. I mean, I mean, I can maybe sometimes, but I feel like I'm so scared. I'm like, don't sing it. Who cares? It's not that big of a deal, you
It's
know?
also not come escrito. It's not in the music.
It's not.
So what?
And
It's
so,
okay.
exactly. So what? But I will say that when you look at the role, there is a much freer, lighter, bubblier Violetta in Act One, and a little bit more in Act Two, and then like in Act Three. So when you think about that role over the course of the evening, technically, what do you think of it? Like I said, are you focused more breathing, or are you focused more with vowels, or like what is it that you sort of that you mentioned that you're more focused in, or you're more aware of now than ever?
I mean, from the singing aspect of it, I'm more concerned with my. I'm not even so much concerned with my sound as it is I'm concerned with feeling my voice in my body. So
I love that.
does
Good.
that make sense?
Well, to me it does. To me
Okay.
it does, because I feel like so often singers are so interested in, like, does that sound okay? What does that sound like? Is that okay? How does it
No,
sound in the hall? What does it feel like?
what does it feel like?
Because in my, as a professor of voice, but also as a performer, I always preach, it's like, you have to base it off of sensation. You have to feel in the body. Do not listen to yourself sing. Do not pay attention to what it sounds like. You don't even have the ability to hear what it sounds like
It's
unless
true.
you're listening to a recording, right? But it's
Right.
like you've got to feel it in the body. And so when you say that, what do you mean specifically? Like always being on the body, being on the breath, or
I think being on when I say I want to, what it feels like in my body, I know when I'm not singing well. I know it right away. I don't need anybody to come up to me and say, Angel, that, I mean, they do. Trust me, they
They
do.
do.
They do. Okay. They're, hi, Angel. I just want to let you know on page 15. I'm like, I can tell you what you're going to say because I can feel it usually. If I'm flat, I can feel it because I can feel that my support isn't under me. So when I talk about feeling within my body, the way I feel my sound or my singing inside of me is that I know that if I am, I'm gonna trying to think of a phrase that everyone knows. Okay, let's just take Carmen since that's, I mean, I don't sing that, but if I were singing like da 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 da, okay, I know that I'm not singing in tune if I don't feel a certain amount of, and I can't think of a better word than pressure. If I don't feel a certain amount of pressure in my support, so if it's supposed to be da 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 da, and I'm going like da, and that's kind of still on the pitch, but I'll know that I'm falling off of the pitch if I don't feel that, if I don't feel the support. The way I feel my support is I honestly do feel a real true expansion around my entire, I would say that almost like the middle lower part of my body, if
Right.
that makes sense. So from like the belly button down
Exactly.
is where I feel. Does that make sense?
To me, it makes perfect sense. I talk constantly about the necessity of even to, let's say, how do you grant access to that lower support? I always preach it to my students. I'm like, if you take a breath and it's like one of these little coral catch breaths where you're like, and you feel yourself kind of
Going
come in, yeah, it's like that's not going to handle it.
up. Uh-uh.
You have got to let your tummy pooch out. So if you're standing and you're looking at yourself in the mirror and you're like, "Ooh, I look pretty good today. All right." No, you have to okay, what happens if I just kind of, oh, okay, well, there we go. You cannot be afraid to let your tummy pooch out when you take a breath in,
For
which
sure.
is different than forcing your gut out. Like you're
Yeah.
like, how fat or how big can I look? Ooh,
Yeah.
it's not that. It's just allowing that relaxation in the lower torso so that when you take your breath
Mm-hmm.
with a lower torso released and your tummy pooched out like that, it's like all of a sudden you grant access to that lower torso. And
100%.
so that in that belly button and down area, you can find that even though when we take a breath, it fills our lungs, it feels like we're almost taking a breath that goes all the way down to our full instrument. And
Mm-hmm.
so if we're going to sing with our full instrument, I always talk about how important it is that when we take a breath in, that we grant access to that full instrument by allowing that breath to be dropped low.
Yeah.
Oh, my little catchphrase, I said drop low and go. So it's like drop low, drop the jaw, let the larynx fall, let the tummy fall. And then
Mm-hmm.
once you take the breath in, go. Like
Yeah.
you can't set, you can't hold, you can't whatever. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
I know some people who say to breathe higher, and I just don't. I personally, I have moments where the sensation is just a bit above my belly button, where I'll feel like the buoyancy
Right.
of it, but the sensation of my actual support. And I mean, also being a woman, I feel like it helps me a lot because um, have had just some of the things that have happened for me health wise. I've had lower body surgeries, and so because of that, I understand where where that pain, that where I had that surgery. I had a myomectomy in 2011,
Okay.
and so I know now really just how low I can breathe, where those muscles for me really are. And it's funny because singing is a funny it's an interesting thing. I have found that in this time of, I know this is slightly off topic, but in this time of COVID-19, where singers are much more open and transparent about singing,
Yeah.
it's definitely open. It allows for people to come in and share what they think about singing. But I always tell people, like, and I'm happy to share this with you, I am not a voice teacher. I will never pretend to be one. I didn't go to school for that. My degree, my master's degree says opera performance. And that's what I do. I opera perform,
Right. Right.
that's what I do. So for me, all of these things are just things that I've learned um, as I've been singing, you know. So I mean, if it goes against any kind of pedagogical thing in any way, I'm not saying anything that I feel that singers should be like, oh, Angel Blue said this, so I got to listen to what she said. No, that's just what works for me in this body, you know.
Right. Right.
It works for things, different things work for different people. I mean, I recently actually had a conversation with a soprano friend of mine. um we both sing Leonora, and I told her, I said, you know, I breathe through my mouth. She's like, oh, I never do that. Oh, I never do that. And I was like, really? You don't breathe through your, she's like, no, everything is through my nose. If it's through my mouth, it's very little. And I was like, okay, that works for you. You know what I mean?
Let's just say let's talk about that for a second. Breathing through your nose through breathing through your versus breathing through your mouth. There's not a right or a wrong answer in that, obviously. I mean, you know, as long as you breathe through your nose as though you are smelling something
Mm.
deeply. You know, if your favorite scent is the Walmart vanilla candle, which I think my wife's, I think that's her favorite. You know, you can inhale and have that lifted palate and that loft. If you breathe through your nose like you're like, and then it doesn't have any type of beneficial, you know, operatic gesture to it, I'm not sure what the benefit would be. The
Yeah.
thing that I do know is that when you breathe through your mouth, let's say that your jaw is dropped like ah, and that you breathe in through the vowel that you're about to sing,
Uh-huh.
you certainly don't have to change very much, right? So and I'm not sure. Me personally, I like to find efficiency in everything that I'm doing.
Yeah.
Efficiency in breath, efficiency in vowel
100%.
resonance, and efficiency is like one of my number one things. And so, if I breathe in through my nose, what I do know is that I have to open my mouth to then sing. Well, if I breathe through my mouth is already open.
Yeah.
One less thing I have to think about. Again, it's not one's right, one's wrong. It seems like
Sure.
one is a little bit more simpler than the other, but hey, listen, if somebody finds, you know, benefit through inhalation through the nasal cavity and that opens up, you know, who knows, maybe they wipe a little what's that, the not smelling salts, but you know, some kind of like what's
You
that
know,
stuff you put on your chest when you have a cold, you know, like
M.
yeah, right, if you
I
put a
can't think of
little
the stuff.
and it wakes you up and it has a little bit more lift to it, like who
Yeah.
knows, whatever works for anybody. But yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, you have to understand what works for you and
Yeah.
what's efficient for you, you know.
Very true. And it takes, I think, you know, for me, I feel like I'm just now starting to find things that work for me here within the last couple of years. I feel like I found things that are, I mean, I've been singing my whole life. I've always known about singing. I've always been singing, but I really believe here within the last couple of years, I've been able to really trust the way that I sing and know and understand that the way that I sing, how I sing, what I understand about my voice does work for me. I do also understand that some of the things that I think don't work for other people, you know, and I'm okay with that. I'm also okay to hear, you know, somebody says, oh, Angel does this, but that doesn't work for me. Like, for example, when I'm singing I believe in space. Okay. I believe in space. I believe in natural space, and I believe in creating space. And I,
Talk
you know,
about
I do
that.
know that, sorry.
Talk about that. What do you mean?
I mean, I guess because, you know, I've been doing coachings. I started a coaching studio, as most of us have. I think I love, okay, so this is kind of off topic, but I am going to talk about space, I hope. I think it's great at this time that so many singers we really have become, I don't know if it's transparency or if it's just what it is, but we've really opened up in the world of opera about so many things, about technique, about roles, about the job
Yeah.
itself. Like, let's go back 10 years. If this had happened 10 years ago when I was in school, or I was in school a lot longer than that, like 15 years ago, if this had happened, and like, let's say whoever was singing 15 years ago, if they had come out like this and said, oh, I have a coaching studio, come coach with me, I mean, I would be all over that if possible, you know. And
Sure.
I find that right now the information, maybe in some ways it's not invaluable because maybe there's so much of it that one has to sort through it, but that's just a part of life, you know.
Yeah.
But I do find that it's very helpful. Sorry. When I talk about space, when I say space, I mainly am talking about inside of the mouth, the space. I feel like I have a really big mouth on the inside, right? I mean, maybe I talk too much too. Excuse me. But I do believe in space. I do believe that there must be that dome on the inside of the mouth. And you know what? One of the things I've noticed about some of the singers that I've been working with, I've been having the pleasure of working with them, is that so oftentimes things drop, you know, and I mean and it really has a lot to do with the embouchure. Do you think that?
I agree with you 100%. And I think
Okay.
one step further is that, as in most, let's say if you're working with college age students, they tend to have, in normal times, certainly, choir 5 days a week and a voice lesson one time a week.
That's crazy.
And I think that the most of their experience at this point is needing to blend within a section and make sure that the vowels are all the same, and so that they sing in tune with like a 40 voice, 50 voice choir. And it's a transition to understand that as an operatic soloist, we are actually looking for something different.
Hmm.
I am not trying to train you to create a sound that would blend with anything. In
Hmm.
fact, I'm trying to get you to create a sound that will cut over an 85-piece orchestra and fill a 4,000 seat hall. So yeah, it's going to be different.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do agree with you that
Yeah.
there has to be a different type of space. And so I don't know about you, but I have come up with so many different types of analogies of like, well, how do you create that space? It's like I always ask my students, I'm like, well, whose cooking do you love the best? So I ask you that, Angel. Who in your family's cooking do you just think like, oh my God, I can't wait to taste that?
Oh, my husband.
Your husband's a good
Oh
chef.
yeah, I don't cook. He does that. I don't cook. I can microwave.
I love the look on your face. You're like, oh no, 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 no.
I
Okay.
don't cook. Adam, yeah, my mouth is watering.
One step further. What's your favorite dish that he makes? Hot dish.
He's German, so gosh, what is that thing called? Rouladen?
Okay. Let's say it's fresh. What is it baked or is it
No, it's I'll do his lasagna. His lasagna is
okay.
delicious.
So let's say it pops right out of the oven and you're like, I am starving. And you pop that into your mouth and it's too hot.
Yeah, exactly.
That that
Yes.
that kind of lift in the soft palate, that kind of it's too hot, right? It's like that immediately brings to mind a sensation that I don't care where you are in your vocal studies,
Right.
everyone's eating something too hot.
But what does that do to your support? Also.
Engage. Everything is
Yes.
engaged, right?
Yes.
So we find that. Or like you go up to a cold window on a winter's night
Uh-huh.
and you write a little heart or you write a little whatever.
Yeah.
That lifting of the soft palate is so important for kids, for anyone, us. I have to constantly remind myself, and I talk to my young kids that have really beautiful voices, and I'm like, you have to remember that you're going to have an issue because you sing so beautifully that so many people will say, yeah, it sounds great. Yeah. Imagine how much better it can sound if you have hot lasagna from Angel's husband in your mouth, right?
That's wonderful. That's great.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
a great analogy.
yeah, right. It's like something that everyone can kind of relate to. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100%. That's absolutely important to have.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
How do you, um, when you hear a singer who's sort of doing that choir thing, which is, and P.S., I am not dissing choir. Okay, I said I was in honor choir. I was in advanced glee. I did choir forever. I have an award actually that I just found that says in 1995 it said outstanding concert choir member. So you did choir as well, no?
My stepdad and my mom were my choir directors who introduced me to music, to classical music. I was in choir all the way through high school, through undergraduate, I mean, choral music has been the thing that introduced me into singing. So
Okay.
all absolutely. I in no way feel negatively towards choral singing.
Okay, because I don't want anyone to think that I am dissing choir because I
No,
was in choir
not at
for a
all.
long time. But I want to know, when there is a singer who sings in that sort of way, like, like you have, like, if a singer's like, caro mio ben credi, how do you encourage the singer to have, I want to, and I don't know how to really word this, so I apologize if it comes out really just elementary, but
Oh,
how do you encourage them to have their own voice? Of course they're singing with their own voice, but how
right.
do you encourage the how do you encourage that, what is that, the word I'm looking for, it's on the tip of my tongue, the individuality, I suppose,
Yeah, like the
of
uniqueness
their sound.
of their sound, right? Yeah.
How do you encourage that? How do you help them break out of that?
Well, usually when you hear someone sing, and if they've had some choral experience, and like you say, the tone tends to be a little breathy, maybe some loose air escaping through the chords, and maybe they're singing in a way that just sounds like, yeah, you're right. If there were 40 other 50 people singing with you right now, that would blend perfectly.
Yeah.
It's like, and that's not a bad thing. It's
Right.
like that's what they have been trained to do,
Hmm.
is to sing along and match vowels and to
Hmm.
blend within a maybe 15 or 20 voice section, depending on how big the chorus is. And so I like to talk a little bit about the good things that they're doing from what they've been trained from, right? Like that's the whole experience. As a soloist, it's something a little bit different. As a soloist, we have to learn to use our instrument in a different way. And so the first thing that I usually talk about is primal projected speech. And I say, let's not talk about singing for a second, and let's pretend that somebody like broke into your house and grabbed your stuff and started running away, and you, hey, like
Yeah.
that just sort of primal projection. Like if you're in the crowded cafeteria of your lunchroom, or if you're out at the football stadium, or if you're whatever venue works best, and Angel, hey, and you're calling someone from 100 yards away. It's like, do that for me. Like I have them experiment with that, and I say, okay, what does that feel like? And because I think that if they haven't related the idea of like shouting to singing, sometimes that's a bigger transition than you would think. And what I love is here recently, a friend of mine that I grew up with, who was like my best friend from like kindergarten through fifth grade. We've come back in touch, and he has children. I've got kids, and he was like, I played one of your recordings for my son the other night. I just want to share with you what he said. And I was like, oh my God, that's so sweet. Oh my God. He goes, yeah. He goes, it sounds like elegant yelling.
That's good.
But
That's
that's
good.
what it is. That's exactly what it's elegant. Yeah. Hey, hey, hey. It's sustained, elegant yelling. That's what we do. And I think for a singer who has only a choral background, to find what that sensation is, they have to sort of feel that in their bodies in a way that's familiar to them. And so if projecting their voice over a crowded loud cafeteria, or calling down the hall, or finding a way to connect to their body in a way that's like, okay, now you're using your full instrument. You're using your body in a different way to sing than what your example of
Hmm.
Romeo.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yes. That was me at 14 too.
well, it was me too. I mean, I think it was
Yeah.
all of us.
Yeah.
So that's really important. And I think, as we all have opportunities to now give back, and you said you came right from a master class before this. It's like, I think that's one of the things that we have to make sure of, is that these younger students who obviously probably have more physical sort of recognition, or familiarity with choral singing. We have to show them, like, well, singing as a soloist is maybe less like that and more like when you're like, hey, which some people might be like, how does that have anything to do with singing? But I think it actually as you know, does, you know.
It's true. It's true. Thank you for that. I appreciate that because I've been just sort of thinking about that in terms of how does one explain that? And I like the analogy of shouting, of elegant shouting. I do like that.
Elegant,
That's very
yeah,
helpful. Very
because
helpful.
and it's also, again, you can talk about all the things that we've already discussed, which has been so wonderful in this session. Feeling that support being so low in the body, because
Yeah.
obviously you can yell from here up,
Of
and
course.
and that kind of yelling I don't even want to demonstrate, right? It's like that's how you go hoarse at a football game. That's how you lose your voice when you're doing that. But it's that type of full body primal engagement that, when you connect to your body. And I don't know, my last week guest, this is so vulgar, but she's like, basically when you sing it feels like you're pooping, and so everybody poops, and everybody knows what it feels like when you poop. And her name is Jennifer Forney, and she's a great singer, she's a great teacher, and she's just very blunt and very
Yeah.
clear. And I was like, yeah, okay, good, okay, so sure. But I mean, if people are curious, it's like, yeah, I mean, it's not like you're trying to lift up a 500-pound
No, no,
grand
no, no.
piano, but at
Yeah.
the same time, it's also not like you're just going, ah, it's not like you're
Sure.
just, there is, like you say, an important lower body engagement that, call it whatever you want to call it. We have to find some type of way to connect to that lower torso, and feel that every time we make a noise, it's engaged. And like I said, what I like to talk about is we grant access to that lower body with the way
Absolutely.
that we take the breath. And
Absolutely.
if we allow that, then we have a better chance of including that in the tone. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
That's fantastic. That's really great advice.
Well, I feel like I could talk to you for like another 8 hours. We probably shouldn't, but um,
Thank you.
you mentioned, obviously, we're in these bizarre
Yeah.
times where we're all. I mean, the good thing about it is that we're at home with our families more
Oh,
so
I
than
love
we
it.
ever planned to be, and that in itself is the most amazing silver lining of them all. But
It is.
as you also mentioned, we as singers have been more open and more honest and sharing, which I think is amazing. But what are some of the things that you like to inspire, the younger generation of singers, with, when you look forward? I mean, it's kind of like a hard reset that we're doing right now, in many ways,
Mhm.
and I feel like the future kind of looks like whatever people could create it to be. I mean, it's like we're in a time right now where, if you have an idea and a way to go live and a thing, it's like you can create your own performance opportunities. But what are some of the things that you're encouraging young singers and young artists with now, looking ahead?
Mm. I think the main thing I'm trying to get across to the people that I'm working with is that it's that their opinion matters. Their opinion of themselves is what matters the most. So I'm working with a lot of singers who are interested in all of these virtual auditions and such. And
Oh, yeah, that's
I
all
think,
there are right now.
right, right. And I think the first thing that is really strong on my heart. So, okay, gosh darn it, I want to make this short so I'm not keeping everybody here all night. I just feel like the first thing is you have to believe in your talent. You have to believe in what you do.
Of course.
You just do. There's no way around that. There's no way to get around believing in oneself. I talk a lot about that because I sort of had like an aha moment about 7 or 8 years ago, and then about 5 or 6 years ago, I told myself, I was like, I actually started to like my voice. Imagine that. I kind of like the way I sing. I like my voice. I like the way I sound. I like it when I record the rehearsal and I go home and I listen to it and I can fall asleep to it. And I'm like, Angel, that's you singing. You learn that music. That's you. So I'm trying to encourage younger singers to one, believe in themselves. Two, you got to do the work. You do. You just got to do the work. That's all there is to it. People can say whatever they want to say about whoever, however, when they sing, they don't do this, they don't do that. But listen, honey, are they on stage singing the music? That means they learned it. That means if they don't play the piano, they went and saw a coach and they learned it, and that means they were there for the rehearsals. They got on the stage, they did the thing. And so you have to do the work. You got to believe in yourself. And I think one of my biggest thing is that I want all young singers to know at this time, they are so amazing to me. Because I'll be honest with you, Weston, if this was me at 22, 23, and we're going through this pandemic, I would have been like, deuces, opera, let me go do something else. Okay. But I would have. I'm just being totally honest. I would have gone and I would have figured something else out. I mean, especially being that young, I could have gone to law school or gone to online law school or something and figured it out. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So my hat is off to all of the young singers at this time, because it takes a very special kind of person to find, I think, is it perseverance, and excitement at this time, to be willing to go and buy a microphone and to get a webcam and to do all of that. I know a few singers who are like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing anything virtual. Okay, well, you're going to be sitting at home for a little bit, not doing stuff then.
Right.
So for me right now, just when I'm talking to younger singers, because Thomas Hampson put me in my place the other day. He was like, "You're young." I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, it depends on who we're talking about.
He was like, "You're a young singer, Angel," and I was like, "Oh, I guess I mean, okay, fine, I am." But then I was like, younger singers.
Right.
So that's what I mean by that, is that younger singers. I don't know. I'm excited for them. I think they're amazing, because if this had been me, COVID, if it was like COVID 2000, I would have been out.
Let's say this. All we can hope is that, that they realize in themselves that they have to want to do this.
Yeah, for sure.
There's no other option for them. And if you're there, then I hope you find people like yourself and, other inspirations, and you keep on keeping on. But I have to say, I have to go and teach teach a private lesson, but I cannot tell you how much I am so thrilled that you were able to join us, and thank you so much for your time and your input and invaluable experiences. So thank you so much for everything. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Weston. Thank you so much for having me on the show. And I wish you all the best with this. I'm going to have you on Faithful Friday. I'll text you and we'll figure out a date.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, awesome. Thank you so much, and take care. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Bye.